Today I am reading from the book Spirit of Homeopathy, book written by Dr. Rajan Sankaran, Mind section, and chapter number 26, Compensation, part 2. Nature of compensation. Compensation is a voluntary act and it arises as a defense against involuntary feeling of our urge. What gives a clue that a person is compensating? It is need for him to resort to an act more often than a normal. For example, when a person tells you spontaneously and repeatedly, "Doctor, what is the use of getting offended? Everybody behave according to his own nature. I never let these things affect me. When someone offend me, I think it is better that I should ignore it rather than say something further and create a conflict." So, I always forgive and forget. Not only does he say this once, but gives us a countless occasions when he was offended and let it pass. When we look at this kind of statement, we should ask ourselves why this theme of forgiving and forgetting is in such a big issue for them, for him. What type of man is it who constantly has to remind himself to forgive and forget? It can only be very sensitive person and one whose very natural tendency is to be malicious and revengeful, like a nitric acid. Compensation and change of state. We can look, this is a label, compensation and change of state. We can look at the Kalkia carved woman, for example, one who has has been Kalkia right now from the childhood. Kalkia is a state coming from a particular situation of being protected where there is a threat from outside and the person is not unable or facing it alone. She confined herself to the house and is afraid to go outside. She seeks protection and security and shelter. By compensating, she will be able to go out, take some risk and have some courage, but she will have to use extra effort or energy to do these things. This type of effort shows that it is a compensation state. As long as the favorable protective situations continue in her life, she will continue to be in uncompensated state. But the moment the situation change, she enter the compensator phase. When even such a compensation is insufficient, there is a change of state. For example, we know that the Kalkia situation is one where a person is a protected surrounding and not capable of facing an external threat. He just seeks the security within his home. So as long as a person has some protection at home, he can afford to view to the situation comfortably. He can remain a Kalkia state, some of whose feature will be compensated and some are uncompensated. But when the situation is completely changed and he loses his security of his home, he feels as if he is left alone in the wilderness. The Kalkia state is no longer going to help him even if he compensates. He goes into the staminum state. The Kalkia situation is the one that is protected. The staminum situation is the one that is unprotected. In Kalkia Carb, the situation is one of seeking security against risk. The Stamonium situation demand resistance against terror and violence. And the compensation is just the opposite, namely, it form of the show of courage. So, Stamonium operate from the situation of being unprotected and threatened and so want to cling to someone. Stamonium is like to do a person out in the dark night, wanting to come home, and Kalkia is one inside the house who does not like to go outside. The whole situation, the whole reactions and the whole feeling of the remedies are different. Therefore, one cannot fit in the another. When you compensate, your actions do change, but our state does not change. If the state change, then your whole feeling change. We see less and less of Kalkia adult. The reason is that though the most children are in the secure Kalkia situation, as they become an adult, this security is lacking and needs more than the Kalkia state of mind to face the new situation. Therefore, his state of the mind has changed, and what it will change into the depends on the two things. One is the new situation, or the other the roots that present in the person. Calcare parents persons has father dies and whose mother become a dependent on him. One who has no money find that is confronted with a situation in which he has to achieve in order to survive. There is no room now for the Kalkia state, and with the intolerance and seeking of protection, they cannot afford this. Now, the lycopodium state or root in him is, if it exists, will be stimulated, or the Barata carb root present even in aurum state may be exit. Then it depends on which root exit in him. This is probably why we do not see any Kalkia adult, especially in a man. The case of married couple, if both are irresolute, and then one will have to compensate for the other person. Irresolution sometime when the compensation become totally inadequate to face the need to do day-to-day life. Then the state has to change so that a new state comes in. And for example, if two insecure people get married, then the one who has more intense insecure state will become a dependent on the other who has to compensate too much. When this is insufficient, he has to become a naturally responsible and dominating person. An insecure person will with a more insecure spouse could become a dominating like lycopodium, or responsible like aurum metallicum, or caring like causticum. Depends on the root within them. Now under the label forming a balance. Now if a couple have two different states, then each of them will compensate for some symptoms and will remain uncompensated in other symptoms. Thus they will form a balance. For example, if the husband is responsible like Aurum-met and his wife is insecure like Calcarea, then the symptom which need to be compensated for by the wife are fear of darkness and fear of being alone. Her husbands may be traveling, often leaving her home alone. In this situation, the sensitivity of cruelty needed to be in an uncompensated form, since it is encourage the dependence. This is what keeps them together and ensure survival and comfort. Mildness and timidity need to remain uncompensated. In the husband, the symptoms which need to be in a uncompensated form are a sense of responsibility and industriousness, and praying and religiousness. Violence and intolerance of contradictions need to be compensated for that partner. They will not be helpful him to in these situations. You may think that if the person is in a situations exactly complementary to his state, then he has no need to become ill. But we must be clear that in homeopathy, the state of itself is a disease, whether it is compensated or uncompensated. It is capable of producing the pathology the person is predisposed to. Now under the label, compensation is like a wound up spring to be released. Compensation is like a wound up spring to be released. Then the more we compensate, the more time we need to uncompensate. The more we are not living according to our basic nature, the more we require time to relax, unwind, be ourselves and feels at home. The need for various form of entertainment, relaxations, holidays and weekend comes from our compensations in various aspects of the life. That is the reason why physical activity like jogging, swimming and other exercise are popular. That is very why sex magazines and films attracts people. That is why boxing and other such violent movies are enjoyed, or why the wars occurs. The busy American executive choose Indian for a vacation to unwind himself. People choose that form of relaxation in which they have to compensate least. Each country entertainment and relaxations programs are usually connected with the compensatory behavior. People feels more relaxed when they are travel to another country with a totally different lifestyle. Foreign travel thus become a common type of relaxation. Sharing is a common compensatory behavior. We share our house, place of work and road and our friends. Very few things really belongs to us exclusively, even if we so desire. That is the reason why collection things and owning them exclusively become a major pastime or hobby. In fact, many hobbies represent an effort to uncompensate. That is perhaps the reason one does not observe some small children and animal to have a hobbies. When compensation start, hobbies begin. In our day-to-day work, we have to heavily compensate in a term of developing personal relationship or during personal communication. The need of parties and social gathering is an attempt to uncompensate. In the East, for example, in India, where work and personal communication do not clash with each other, the need for such gathering and parties become limited. Most of us have a compensator for our speed, which is usually slower than we would like it to be. No wonder people in the big cities find it most relaxing to go to the very slow and leisurely place and do nothing. It is natural for the workaholic person to work at a very fast speed. It does not involve compensation on his part. Therefore, he will have no need for relaxing in a quiet place. Hence, one of the signs that the person is compensating is that he will have a periodical need to do something opposite. On the other hand, the person who is not compensating, even though his present way of life may stressful, will feel more tense when compelled to do the opposite. Compensator features can be perceived more prominently in the practice if favorable circumstances present for the expression of the uncompensated direct compensator exist. If they are not expressed by the patient even in these favorable circumstances, then the remedy may be ruled out. The question arises in which instance will be symptom be found in a direct form of spite of direct form in spite of attempt to compensate for them. They will be seen directly if the existing factor is very strong and has a last for a long time, and the life situation is such that there has been a lack of opportunity to compensate for the troublesome features. For example, insecure childhood. The type of compensation a person will manifest has to be in a tune with one, the other component of the remedy, and number two, the social situation and norms. In summary, to decide if a feature that is expressed is compensated or is an uncompensated basic feeling, we can apply the following criteria which determine the compensated symptoms. Number one, a symptom that trouble the patient. Two, a symptom feeling or action that is felt by the patient as beyond his control. He say, I cannot help it. It is the way I feel. Number three, the symptom the patient does not want to have but still have. Any symptom that goes against social approval. And then any symptom that are manifest during the stressful situation, any symptom that is patient try to hide from the view, when a symptom does not have a reason or a satisfactory explanation, and when a situation close to the original situation of the remedy, then the patient's attitude toward his disease, and then a patient's choice of vacation and pastime. For example, we have observed so many Kali brometum patients with restless finger opting for a pastime and occupation such as typing, computer, playing musical instrument, etc. Conversely, the reverse of the above would be compensated symptom. We compensate for those symptoms which are not appreciated by the society, which are harmful to us, which hurt our feeling or self-image. Those which are useful to us will be found in a uncompensated form. For example, the industriousness of the aurum metallicum. By reading the component of the remedy in the Materia Medica, we can get hint about which component will probably be compensated or uncompensated in a patient according to the above three criteria. Above three criteria where which are not appreciable by society, which are harmful to us, which hurt our own self-image. Now on the label, proving and compensation. In proving, not all the component of the remedy can be brought out. In proving, the effect is sudden and acute. These symptoms are experienced by the prover almost for the first time and also in a very intense form. The most troublesome uncompensated symptom will be experienced most clearly and thus nearly exclusively recorded. Those symptoms which are experienced as less prominent by the prover will be overshadowed. By the time these troublesome symptoms could be compensated, the proving will most probably be over. Now under label selection of potency in the compensated state or a case. I have found it difficult to select the potency in a compensated case because potency is determined by the intensity of the characteristic symptom in compensated cases. The characteristics are not available in the direct form. They are to be found in compensated form, and therefore it is difficult to determine the intensity of such a symptom. For example, in nitric acid patient, we saw that they tell him all the time that there is no sense in taking a revenge. This is a compensated form of maliciousness. In this case, how do we determine the intensity of the malicious person? The answer lies in our definition of health and disease. We generally understand health a state of peace and freedom. Compensation involves restrictive behavior. It curtails our freedom to be in the here and now. In trying to cover up his maliciousness, the nitric acid person feels restricted and his response and actions can no longer be fully in the moment. So this is the extent to which his peace and freedom are curtailed. So the extent he is diseased and in proportion to the intensity of the characteristic will be the potency be selected. The same is true in anacardium, for example, to the extent that he compelled to be kind. He is a disease and the potency will be determined in proportion to the intensity of the disease. Likewise, sepia mother with indifference as a basic feature will often try and do much more for her children in order to hide some his feeling and her indifference. The indifference how much he extend to which it shows the intensity of his state and therefore the potency required on basis of state. The restriction of the freedom in people is not equal along different parameters. For example, Ignatia has restrictions along the parameter of love and duty, and Brianna has a restriction along the parameter of money. In the uncompensated form, the restriction will be on one side and the compensated form on the opposite side. For example, compensated anacardium cannot be cruel even when the situation is demand. He cannot even kill an irritating mosquito. Again, you can see that the compensated restrict his behavior. To the extent which his reaction is restricted determine the intensity of his state and therefore the higher the potency when state is higher.